Welcome, college football fans. I'm TC Tykill, and I'm going over my top 25 for Week 9 of the college football season. Last week, we had a great weekend of games, lots of upsets, and the shakeup in the standings is a result of that. Have a little bit of potential for some upsets this weekend, not as much as the past 2 weeks, but still we should have some exciting games. Couple top 25 games as well, including one in the Pac-12, UCLA and Oregon. College Game Day will be there for the game of the day, doing their College Game Day session from Eugene, and I will be traveling to Seattle to watch my Huskies take on the Golden Bears. And that one's going to be a late game, so I'm not going to be able to watch a whole bunch of football. Got a 4-hour drive there, and then an 8 p.m. local time start. Not going to be good. I'm going to be getting home pretty early in the morning on Sunday. Anyway, let's get on with my top 25. Like always, if you disagree, let me know what you disagree with and how you would rank them yourself. At number 25, I have the biggest dropper, South Carolina. They gave me some hope against Kentucky a couple weeks ago by blowing them out, but haven't looked good other than that. They lose to a Tennessee team who got blasted by Oregon, even though it was a late second field goal. So I don't know what to think about them, and they have to go on the road to Columbia to face on Missouri, which is now a top 5 team. And they jumped up the rankings fast, but I won't talk about them yet. I'm going with South Carolina in this one. Missouri in this one, 21-17. I think it might be a little bit of a lower scoring battle, but it probably will be a little bit higher than that. But I go with the Tigers in this one. At number 24, I have Northern Illinois, and to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about this Huskies team. They played Central Michigan last weekend and face Eastern Michigan at home this weekend. I don't know. Can they go and bust the BCS, be the BCS buster again like last year? Who knows? They have to run the table, and I'm sure other teams up there will lose. So they could probably control their own destiny in that regard. I'm going with the Huskies in this one, 38-14 over Eastern Michigan. At number 23, I have previously unranked Auburn in mind after they upset Texas A&M in College Station. Good game. Watch this one off and on. Close battle. And a good sack on Johnny Manziel to seal the deal, 45-41. They take on Florida Atlantic. Should be an easy walk through the park after being battle-tested the past few weekends. And I don't know who they play next weekend in the SEC. So yeah, moving on. Nebraska at number 22. They were previously unranked as well. And they take on Minnesota, which beat Northwestern last weekend on the road. So Minnesota's kind of a be wary team, capable of some upsets, but probably not. I think Nebraska is a little more focused. That Big Ten is pretty much wide open outside of Ohio State. So who's going to be the challenger to take them on in the Big Ten championship game? At number 21, I have Virginia Tech, and a lot of people are giving them higher grades, higher rankings, around 15. And Virginia Tech really, I don't think, has done a lot outside of just playing Bama, even though they got spanked. They take on Duke, which has a winning record, so that's a good step in the right direction before a couple big games coming up. I think Miami is on the horizon as well, either next week or in the next few weeks. So we'll definitely know more about them shortly. At number 20, I have Wisconsin. I need to go back and do my picks. I'm going with Auburn, 52-17 over Florida Atlantic. And Nebraska, 38-27 over Minnesota. Oh, and Virginia Tech, 31-10 over Duke. Okay, now Wisconsin. They are on a bye this weekend. They beat up on Illinois last weekend, 56-32. I think it was a little closer than that in the halftime, but on the road, that can be acceptable, I guess. I don't know why this happened. I didn't mean it to. I don't think any less of Wisconsin, but they dropped 2 in my polls just because of the shuffling up and down in the top portion. Like I said, they have a bye, so no score to predict there. At number 19, I have Oklahoma State. Had that win against TCU 24-10 last week. Traveled to Ames to take on Iowa State. And this one could be a little bit risky as well. Last weekend, I thought it would be a little bit closer between the Cyclones and Baylor. But that one obviously did not turn out the way I thought. But Oklahoma State kind of not struggling. They're winning their games handedly. But I think they have their guard down a little bit. And probably not against Iowa State because they are known for the upsets. But I think Iowa State makes this a little bit of a game. And I'm going with Oklahoma State 28-24 in this one. The Cowboys come out on top. At number 18, I have Fresno State moving up 2. And this is kind of the same thing with the Oklahoma State and Iowa State. They travel to San Diego State, where San Diego State's been a better team at home than on the road. San Diego State's been tested with Ohio State and Oregon State. So I think this one could be close as well. Fresno State coming off a 38-14 win against Las Vegas. I'm still going with my team, Fresno State. That's my little non-AQ team, my favorite non-AQ team, Fresno State is. But I'm going with them, 38-31, touchdown favorite over San Diego State. But keep an eye on that one, I would suggest. At number 17, I have Arizona State, the bad guys for this week. They beat up on my Huskies last weekend tremendously. 56-24 was the final score, something similar to that. Yeah, they are on a bye this weekend, so I don't get to hate on them as much. So yeah, they move up 4 in my rankings. I think they're better than what they showed against Notre Dame, definitely, and they proved that against Washington. Definitely good on the defensive side. Held them to only, I guess not only, but they held them to -2 rushing yards. Bishop Sankey only got 22 of those, and Taylor Kelly tore up that offense. Tore up the Washington defense, rather. At number 16, moving on, I have Louisville, the second biggest dropper, at 9 spots dropped. They got upset against Central Florida at home, 35-38. They take on South Florida this weekend, and a lot of people just really discounted them right away and threw them to the bottom of the rankings just because they haven't really played anyone. And then when they finally play someone that's at the edge of ranked or close to being ranked, receiving votes, something like that, with only one loss to South Carolina, and then they lose to him by a field goal. So, tough break for them, but they will come out of this stronger, and they definitely got to hope UCF loses in conference if they even want that automatic bid to the BCS Bowl that the AAC gets this year. At number 15, I have Texas A&M dropping 5 spots after that loss to Auburn. I have Louisville winning 41-14, by the way, over USF. Texas A&M, how are they going to rebound? Johnny Manziel looks like he will be playing this weekend against Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt, a little bit of a high off their win against Georgia, but not going to be enough to let them win this game. I'm going with Texas A&M 49, Vanderbilt 34. At number 14, I have Oklahoma. Another one of those teams that are just slowly climbing the ranks and not looking too terribly impressive, but still winning their games. They're going to have a great game this weekend against top 10 Texas Tech, and this is an interesting game as well. I think Oklahoma has better defense, but they're going to be tested by this Texas Tech offense, which is very surprising to say the least. And it should be a good game. I'm giving Oklahoma the edge just because it is in Norman, though. One of the hardest places to play, the most winningest home records in college football. I'm, like I said, giving Oklahoma the edge, 27 over Texas Tech's 24. At number 13, I have Georgia. They did not move due to other people moving up and down around them. They are on bye this week, and gratefully so. They are injury depleted and coming off a loss to Vanderbilt. Not much to say about these guys. It's kind of unfortunate. Their season looks so good after their win in week 2. But alas, it does not look like it's going to be a good finish to that season. I mean, it could still happen. The SEC East is fairly wide open, assuming Missouri can't run the table. But it looks like Missouri's last chance to get a Lions' reasonable chance to get a loss is this weekend against South Carolina. Georgia on a bye, like I said. So we're going to move on to number 12, and that is LSU playing Furman. And I know a lot of you are saying, who's that? And I'm with you right there. They got upset as well in Oxford against Ole Miss, 24-27. And Ole Miss kind of up and down too. You don't know what you're going to get with them. Could be upset-minded or lay an egg. But still got to take them seriously. LSU, definitely good for a tune-up. I think the Alabama game is coming up soon. I guess it has to come up soon with only 6 or 5 games left. LSU big in this 163, Furman 10. At number 11, I have UCLA. Not trying to drop them too much. I think Stanford's still a great team, but they did get beat pretty handily in Palo Alto, 24-10. They traveled to Eugene to get that back-to-back Pac-12 powerhouses, the Ducks, and I think they're going to get murdered. I don't know. UCLA is still the South favorite, but just I don't think can handle the Ducks. I don't think anyone can, and when that Oregon-Stanford game comes around, I think people will see how much ahead Oregon is than the rest of the Pac-12. Lots of energy in this one with College Game Day being there. I think Oregon will take it and run with it, beating UCLA by 20, 44-24 in favor of the Ducks. At number 10, I have Clemson, and they had a big loss stomped at the hands of Florida State. Is Clemson that bad, or did they have an off night, or is just Clemson, or is Florida State that good? They have a weird, interesting game going to Maryland this weekend. Maryland looked like a surprise team about week 6 until they got hammered by Florida State. If Clemson's not ready for this one, I think Maryland can definitely win this one. And I was tempted with picking the upset, but I'm not going to do that. I think it's going to be close. Clemson's played a few close games against weaker opponents, but I think they find a way to, again, pull this one out, and they definitely need it, as Florida State looks like they have a stranglehold on the Atlantic Division. Clemson 24. Clemson 24. Maryland 21. At number 9, I have Texas Tech, and we just talked about that game a little bit against Oklahoma, going to Norman, and they were trailing the Mountaineers of West Virginia at half into the third quarter, but came alive and took over that game, winning by 10 in the end in Morgantown. I don't. When I think of Texas Tech, I don't really think of them as a top team, but they're undefeated right now, 7-0. And even though it's a down division, you still got to give credit when a team's undefeated. They have a gauntlet, comparative gauntlet. This coming month, they have Oklahoma this weekend, Oklahoma State, Texas coming up in November. So it's going to be a little more challenging, and they're going to have to earn that BCS bid if they want it. And yeah, so Texas Tech, like I said, 27. I think they're going to lose this one, though, 27-24. Next up at 8th, I have Miami, and they are playing Wake Forest this weekend. They almost got upset at North Carolina last weekend on the Thursday night game, so they got a little bit extra time to rest and prepare for Wake Forest. Should be an easy matchup, but I don't think they're going to overwhelm Wake Forest, but I do think they will win pretty decidedly. I'm going 28-17 Miami over Wake Forest. And number 7, this one might be a little more controversial because they are over a undefeated team. But I'm going with Stanford in this one. I do think they're better than Miami. I would say better than Miami and Texas Tech. They had that win against UCLA last weekend, 24-10. That kind of proved that they can hang with anybody. I think that Utah loss was a little bit of a fluke, and playing on the road in that weather and altitude, I mean, not making excuses for them, but I think they're better than what that game showed. They go on to take Oregon State, I think ranked in the BCS or AP poll at number 25. The Beavers in Corvallis. This one's an interesting game as well. Oregon State looking a little better. Look at my Pac-12 predictions for this one for a little more in-depth info. But can the Beaver defense stop Kevin Hogan and Ty Montgomery long enough for Sean Mannion to tear apart Stanford's defense? Sean Mannion looking good in the Heisman, getting a little bit more respect from voters. They have gone undefeated, not beaten since losing their opening game against Eastern Washington, the only blemish on their record so far. I want to pick the upset, but I think Stanford's too good for them, and Oregon State's defense isn't as good as last year. So I'm going with Stanford in this one, 31-28 over the Beavers. It's going to be a close game, though. I will say. Number 6, I have Missouri, and this is a surprise team, and getting the benefit of the doubt because they are the SEC, and they've been playing some ranked opponents with Florida and Georgia. They're definitely rising in the polls quickly. I think 3 weeks ago they weren't even in the polls. They were right outside, though. But undefeated tends to get you there. Like I said a little bit ago, I think this is their last major test in the East for the bid to the SEC championship game. They got Kentucky still to go, and I think Arkansas, if I'm not mistaken. And again, like I said, I think Missouri being at home is going to give them a little bit of an advantage. I like South Carolina, but they've been playing a little too inconsistent and poorly for me. I like this Missouri team. I think their QB, Franklin's out, I think, for a few weeks, so they have Mock still in there, and I think the stat line looked pretty good for him. I didn't get a chance to catch any highlights or watch the game over. But I'm going with Missouri again, 21-17. At number 5, I have Baylor, and who's just been destroying teams. They took on Iowa State last weekend and won by 64 points. They go to Kansas, and I'm kind of scared for Kansas, what the Bears are going to do to them. No real concern here. 69-24, kind of being a little conservative in my pick. Baylor over the Jayhawks, and still undefeated at the end of this week. At number 4, I have Ohio State. Yes. They had a kind of close game last weekend against the Hawkeyes of Iowa, 34-24. They won that one, and a lot of people have been saying this has the potential of an upset week for them. Penn State kind of up and down as well. Lost to UCF, lost to Indiana, but beat Michigan. So again, potential for this one to be an upset. I don't think it's going to happen. I like the Buckeyes in this one over the Nittany Lions, 35-24. Maybe close in the third quarter, but I don't know. We'll see. At number 3, I have dropping one spot, Alabama, and nothing against them. I think they're playing great. I just think two teams are ahead of them right now. But a lot of people are giving them the benefit of the doubt because they have been the past 2 national title winners. And like I said, they've been playing great the past few weeks, blowing out Arkansas, blowing out Kentucky like they should have, and had that pretty good win at the time against Ole Miss when they were 25th ranked. I like Alabama against Tennessee. I don't think it's going to be any upset special. A lot of people have been talking about this one too since Tennessee beat South Carolina last weekend, but Tennessee still isn't that good. And they're going to be in Tuscaloosa. I'm going with the Tide, 35-13 over the Vols. At number 2, I really had a toss-up between these top 2 teams. But because I've seen Oregon more, I'm going to give Oregon the edge. I'm going with number 2. No, my thing's sorted wrong. I'm sorry. I'm going with number 2 as Oregon, just because Florida State had a top 5 win. Oregon last week played Washington. No, that was 2 weeks ago. That's weird. I don't know what happened. Washington State. That's right. It's a little cut off. They played Washington State in Eugene and rolled the Cougars. It was a 30-point win. Some bad blood between Mike Leach and I think Mike Aliotti, the defensive coordinator. I don't know who that is. Calling Mike Leach out. Blah, blah, blah. Moving on. College game day comes to Eugene. Like I said, they take on a top 15 team in UCLA. And this one could have a rematch in the championship week with the Pac-12 championship, as UCLA, I think I said this again earlier, they look like the leaders in the South Division, and Oregon State has a hold on the North Division. I'm liking Oregon in this one, like I said when we were talking about UCLA, 44-24. And moving on to number 1, moving up 2 spots after a great win last weekend, Florida State demolishing Clemson, knocked them up to first in my rankings. Jameis Winston looking fantastic, as well as the whole team. The defense did a lot better than I thought it would. Guess I kind of been a little bit down about Florida State's defense, but the past few weeks I've definitely been buying in, and they haven't had any real close games. I think they've had a first half. That Boston College game was a little bit scary in the first half, but other than that, they've looked fantastic, and right now they look like the best team in the nation, in my opinion. So I'm going with them as number 1. I say they win against NC State 41-17. They are at home in Tallahassee. So that's my top 25. If you disagree with me, tell me why. If not, like and subscribe. Thank you for listening. Have a great weekend of college football, and we'll be back next weekend.